Thank you for joining us in another edition of the Florida Chamber Foundation's Florida Horizon. I'm Tony Carvajal, the Executive Vice President of the Florida Chamber Foundation, and joining me today is our trustee and good friend, Chris Hart. Chris has worked with us on economic development, on workforce, on policy, and he's here today as the CEO of the Florida Court Clerks and Comptrollers. Chris, thank you so much for joining us today.
Tony, happy to be here.
So we've talked about what the role of court clerks and comptrollers are and how important it is to really securing things for citizens and for businesses. And we've talked about the paperwork that they do. I want to switch the conversation really to something that's in the Florida 2030 plan, and that is aligning and ensuring efficiency in government. You all are an exemplar in that. Most people, as you have mentioned in previous, don't know how good you are in so many of the things that you do, but your organization is a leader in this country in terms of innovation and technology. Tell us a little bit about what you do that nobody else is currently doing.
Okay, happy to. So with the Clerks Collective mission being to protect the public trust, one of the areas that they've found that they can do that best because of the growing needs throughout the state of Florida is through technology. And so one of the key areas that they've focused on is ensuring that we have consolidated way in which we can have citizens and businesses, their attorneys, file any cases, civil cases, criminal cases. So we do that through the e-filing authority, which is managed, co-managed really, if you will, between Florida's court clerks and the Supreme Court through their clerk of the Supreme Court. That's worked very well. Millions of filings go through that system every single year, so you can only imagine the number of documents. But here in our state, that actually helps us to be more effective and more efficient in an area that most people really don't want to spend a lot of time on, right? It's never fun either to be a part of a suit, whether you're bringing the suit or whether the suit's been brought to you. One of the other areas is really all back end. So if you think about it, you've been speeding and you receive a ticket, unfortunately. Well, one of the areas is not just the financial aspect of paying the ticket, but it's the time that it might take to have to pay that ticket. So you can go to the clerk's office. There are also other places where you can probably go to pay off your ticket. But the clerks have put in place some very effective means where you can go online and pay the ticket. And so we're trying to constantly enhance payment options for Florida citizens, make it as easy as possible for them to work with their government. Child support payments, look, back in the 1990s, it became very clear in this state and throughout the other states in the nation that all child support payments were not being made. They were not going to the individuals who they were directed at through the court orders. And so Florida's court clerks and comptrollers, they stepped up. They worked with the Department of Revenue, and they actually built one of the very first child support systems. We're still doing that very effectively throughout the state of Florida.
That integrity is so important, not only in terms of making sure that the payments get to the right people, but that paperwork. If I think of the things that fall through the gaps sometimes in cases that I've been involved in, it's just things that get missorted, misfiled, and we're in a world where paper and technology is growing. So kudos to you for leading that.
Can I touch on that for just a moment? So our court clerks, they said we don't really want to be on the bleeding edge, but we definitely want to be on the cutting edge. We want to ensure that we're serving our citizens better today than we did yesterday, and that we just continue to improve. Artificial intelligence, that's one of the areas that they've been looking into. Some of our court clerks have already made great gains in embedding artificial intelligence within their record keeping. It's helping out tremendously. So it's allowing them to be able to enter the information much more quickly, much more effectively to ensure that we have good data quality and that we're managing that data, which is important because we share a lot of that data with all of those, could be as many as 45,000 other governmental partners, and so we want to ensure that that data quality is there.
You know, so when I'm thinking about court clerks, maybe there's a lot of times when I don't want to intersect with you in terms of speeding tickets and fines and these penalties, but there's a lot of times that we do. You're talking about the integrity of court filings, you're talking about deeds, you're talking about paperwork that absolutely matters to our economy. So if you had to think through about one big message that I had to take home to my family and say, look, did you know we have court clerks? Maybe you don't always think about them. You know, what's the most important thing that we need to know about why court clerks are important to maintaining Florida's integrity and even securing our future?
So court clerks and comptrollers, number one, they ensure that the integrity of your governmental processes, that you're in essence, that justice is being delivered that what you think government is doing for you, they're doing for you. And on the comptroller side, that if they are extracting your tax dollars, that those tax dollars are being spent wisely.
So Chris, you know, we've talked about the importance of what court clerks do for businesses in terms of deeds and policy court filings. But there's a real human and personal nature to all of this. And just bluntly, there's some public safety issues that we don't think about, and hopefully we never come across, but court clerks really focus on that. Tell me a little bit more about those areas.
Sure, no, I'd be happy to. So there's three main areas that I think most citizens and businesses need to be aware of, where the court clerks and comptrollers really help them, ensuring that government is working the way it's supposed to work. Number one is in the court process. So they manage it all the way from the jury process to all of the documents to ensuring that the orders are carried out the way that they're supposed to be carried out. But there are other times where we have risk protection orders. Obviously, we've had gun safety issues. They are a big part of that public safety issue, and they're a core part of that process. Domestic violence. If there is a case of domestic violence, and I think that this is one of the areas where the human side of government really comes through. They have specially trained individuals in the court clerk's offices. They have special offices. So if somebody comes in who's a victim of domestic violence, they are ushered into that office. They are treated with utmost care and respect by those individuals. It does not feel like government. Thirdly, we ensure that in their role as comptroller or county auditor, that your tax dollars are being spent wisely and prudently.
Chris, I really sit back and I think this is one of those things we don't think about a lot because it's working for the most part. So kudos to you, kudos to your members, thanks to the court clerks and comptrollers for everything you're doing. I think that as we're thinking about Florida 2030, we've talked about making government and civics more efficient and effective and how essential it is. Your story is clearly right in there, so thank you for what you're doing, not only to secure Florida today, but secure Florida's futures.
Thank you, Tony. Our court clerks are thrilled to be a part of this process with the Florida Chamber and the Florida Chamber Foundation.
We look forward to working with you on this and all the other innovation and projects that you bring forward. So thank you so much for joining us on this episode of the Florida Chamber Foundation's Florida Horizon. Look forward to working with you in making sure that government, civics, and the entire state of Florida is pointed in the right direction as we move forward to Florida 2030. I'm Tony Carvajal. Thank you for joining us on the Florida Chamber Foundation's Florida Horizon.